We have a guest joining us in the studio. He's the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Crop Development, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Kello Harsama. Bona PS, good morning.
Morning.
Welcome again to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. That is the hot seat of the situation room, as you know. But we have some easy conversation to have. Now, to welcome you on behalf of CT, who has said hello to you, kwa mbali umesema tusalimiane hewani. The day's proverb is from South Africa. This week's proverbs are from South Africa. And this one today is, in a herd of cattle, it doesn't matter which is ahead. In a herd of cattle, it doesn't matter which is ahead. First of all, do you agree with that?
Surely I agree.
You're a pastoralist.
Oh, yes.
Do you agree?
Yes. Yes. Meaning all of them, each of them are equally important.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what do you think the South Africans are saying here? What's a deeper meaning?
In my opinion, the deeper meaning is each of them have their own value, they have their own meaning, and their own importance to us. Yes.
All right. What do you think, Ndu?
Anybody can lead. Everybody has some kind of attributes of that can help to lead the pack.
Everybody has a role.
Sure.
In hard.
Sure.
Okay. The last time you were here, Bona PS, we were talking about distribution of fertilizer. You were going on with the mapping of farmers, and there was distribution of fertilizer, and there was anticipated start of the rainy season. And then we were talking about, once we give these farmers this fertilizer and the rains come, we are going to have a bumper harvest.
Yes.
What's the situation like right now?
Surely you have said it. We are going to have a bumper harvest. As I told you the other time, many Kenyan farmers have really longed to have a bumper harvest of that nature. But because of a number of bottlenecks, they were unable to do it. One of the problems, or one of the bottlenecks being the problems of inputs, like fertilizers, like seeds, like pesticides. And when the new government came to power, that is the Kenya Kwanza government led by President William Ruto, we started distributing subsidized fertilizer, which really boosted the morale of farmers, which really contributed a lot to production like the one you are seeing there, the bumper harvest, just the way you are seeing here.
Have people started harvesting, though?
Yes, some of them have started harvesting.
In which parts of the country?
Yeah, depending on ecological zones. There are areas which are warmer in nature, like the eastern part of the country, the western part of the country, the coastal region, and parts of central Kenya. They have started harvesting earlier than the rest.
And this is just maize we're talking about?
Yes, we are talking about maize, of course.
Okay.
Earlier, people have already harvested beans and even potatoes in many parts of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? When a farmer talks about a bumper harvest, obviously your yield is great. Maybe in sometimes it's early, but your yield is great. So if we're looking at collective bumper harvest for the country, what does that mean then in terms of storage?
Yeah,
which has been a problem.
Yeah, what that actually means is that we have reported under harvesting for a long time because of the problem of input, which I've just indicated. For example, because of the shortage of fertilizer or failure of the farmers to apply fertilizer on their crops, the yield per acre has been low for many years. In many instances, for maize, the example of maize, the average harvest without applying fertilizer was even as low as $7, was as low as even 10 per acre, yes, $10 per acre. But now after the application of subsidized fertilizer, we are experiencing yields per acre going to as much as 40 bags. That's what we are calling bumper. As much as even
From 7 bags to 40 bags.
40 bags. From 7 bags to even 25 bags. Okay, per acre. 30 bags per acre.
But-
Depending on proper.
And we're attributing this to fertilizer.
I'm attributing this to fertilizer.
But it's not because farmers were not using fertilizer, it's because farmers were using expensive fertilizer.
Yes, it is not farmers were using fertilizer. Again, farmers didn't even afford enough fertilizer. They were also under application of fertilizer. When we are supposed to apply 2 bags in an acre, some farmers were unable to afford it.
I see. So if we were looking at fertilizer having been bought at 6,000, almost 7,000 shillings a bag,
Yes.
then a farmer would be, quite economical in how they applied it on the crop.
Right.
So now we are saying that with the fertilizer that came in, which was just above 3,000 shillings,
Yes.
about half of the or the cost, then farmers would maybe spend 2-3 times that, 3 bags, 4 bags, because they will spend less in terms of shillings.
Yes.
And now they can see that the application of the fertilizer on the crop then is what the crop actually needs.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Why do you think this was not done before? If I can look at what was happening, at some point cereal boards told us that storage facilities were empty. There was no grain in the country. So even when the drought hit hard, and the 23 to 24 counties that were suffering because of the drought, there was nothing in the storage, right? It seems to me that this information would have been known. That look, even those who do plant when there's a little rain, they can't afford the fertilizer, so they're using a little bit. We're not going to have as much in terms of a yield. It's clear that this works if what you're saying then is the case. Why would this not have been done before?
Thank you. The reason is very simple. We have had a government in place for many years. I mean, successive governments since independence. We have had policies. We have had budgets. We have had, farms. We have had, everything, good soil and everything. But the problem was the political will. What is now happening is the government, which is in place, has the political will to support farmers. Actually, without that will, many policies will not pick in the country. In any administration, successive administration, there must be a political will for you to support your people, for you to enforce policies. Some of these policies were even there, but it is about enforcement and putting more energy into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the hope for storage of food moving forward? If the barns are empty, Kenya is just as hungry if there's a bumper harvest or not. What's the plan, or what's the hope to have boards and barns of food that will be kept?
Thank you very much. This is what we have been preparing to do. Of course, such a bumper harvest will result in 2 things. Either to support us or to go to waste. So we are prepared to ensure that this food does not go to waste. For example, we are expecting to harvest over 40 million bags from this season. And we know what 40 million bags means. You have to have proper, not only stores, but adequate stores, clean stores, stores which are phytosanitary, of good phytosanitary standard to ensure that it does not get into problems of aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is a condition that results from dampness in a store. So we have to be prepared. And I want to tell you that we are fully prepared. All stores have been refurbished across the country. We have more than 116 stores, National Cereals and Produce Board, across Kenya. And in preparation for the storage, we have repaired where, stores are dilapidated. We have cleaned them, ready to store them.
What's the maximum capacity of these 116 stores in terms of bags?
In terms of bags, it's over 20 million, 90 kg bags.
Over 20 million?
Yes.
But we're expecting a harvest that's double this.
Double this. And not all of them will be stored in National Cereals Board because some of them will be consumed, some of them will be sold to traders, others will be stored, domestically.
But PS, you'll agree that when it comes to handling of post-harvests, usually the issue comes at that point. Farmer has harvested their crop, and then there's the issue of drying, how they are drying this before they even take it to the cereals board, because the cereals will look at the moisture level and moisture content. So there is inadequate drying that happens before the farmer takes this to the cereals board. Now, if over half of this maize is not going to go to the cereals board to be checked, their moisture content level, how sure are we that the other 20 million bags of maize are actually going to be dried properly and kept in proper conditions? Because we are talking about local people's local stores. How sure are we that those ones have been improved?
Yeah, thank you very much. Farming communities have their own coping mechanisms. They have their own adaptive strategies for many years in history, to dry their crops, to ensure that they do their own storages. Some of them are not up to standard, some of them are not modern. But it is now up to the government to ensure that these storages and traditional practices are standardized to ensure, again.
So what are you doing?
What we are doing
to have this done? Because like you've said, we have had those inadequate and bad storage facilities and drying facilities. In fact, that's why you've seen a problem with aflatoxin over the last couple of years. So what is it that the ministry is doing this time to preserve our harvest?
Thank you very much. I was going to say it. This time around, as I said, we want to root out these traditional drying systems. We, as a government, have ordered 100 dryers, modern dryers. And many of these are mobile dryers from point to point. 100 dryers, meaning, strategically put in several parts of Kenya. We have, of course, more than 100 areas where maize is growing across the country, storage points, more than 100 storage points. These can be cooperative centers, cereal boards, or other storage points identified by the communities. So strategically, we are going to identify which areas we are going to put these dryers. And before, early towards the end of October, these dryers will come in. We have ordered them from outside the country. They are coming. They are being assembled right now, and they are going to do wonders for many, many Kenyans who want to dry their maize in a modern way. Yeah.
So what's the modality? Speak to the farmer and tell the farmer, so one of the 100 maize mobile dryers will be in your area.
Yes.
How does a farmer access this dryer? Is there a timetable? Is there a way that farmers should organize so then they can use these dryers?
Yes, of course, we are going to set up that timetable. We are going to announce to people, we are going to announce to farmers how they are going to access these dryers, which cereal board. Of course, they know. And farming communities are alive to what we have done. We have made announcements. The president himself has made announcements in various functions, and many people are aware. They are even waiting to see these dryers.
Is it going to be free of charge?
It is not likely to be free of charge, but what is going to happen is it's going to be subsidized. in the past, a bag of maize could be dried at about 60 Kenyan shillings. But what we are going to do as a government, which cares for its people, which is mindful of the welfare of its farmers, we are going to subsidize this rate to a reasonable amount.
Right.
Yes.
What appears as I think around the times I don't when the drought hit hardest, and the question was, where was food going to come from? There were also imports of maize, things like that. That the discussions went round about where that would happen. Also, the discussions about the introduction of alternative sources of food came into play, which I think for any country, it doesn't matter what the staple is, for any country, that ought to be a live conversation about an alternate in the event that something happens. I mean, we've seen in the past there has been blight, there has been contamination, there have been so many things that can happen across the world. So the need to source for an alternate source of sustenance in terms of food then becomes front and center. Are there conversations like that? When we talk about development in the agricultural sector, I know that maize is very big in Kenya. Is there a sustainable developing conversation that can be had about an alternate source of food in the country?
Yes, that's a very, very important question. In Kenya, maize has been our staple food. We have never thought of any kind of alternative food because all the time many Kenyans wanted to eat maize, they wanted to eat ugali, and absence or shortage of maize meant a lot of trouble for us. And so what governments have always done is to sustain availability of maize all through, either through encouraging large-scale plantation to sustain a proper production, or seal gaps by allowing imports into the country. So basically that is what we have done as a government. And that is why, in order to boost production of maize, the government has subsidized fertilizer so that we encourage as many people as possible to go into maize farming and to produce it for Kenyans. However, as you rightly said, there is need to have an alternative crop also. In a situation like which we went through some 6 months ago, where we had a serious shortage of maize. Even when we wanted to import maize, we were unable to get maize. For example, we gazetted an importation of 1.4 million metric tons of maize. But we only got less than 400,000 metric tons. Okay? That's, as you rightly said then, tells us that there must be some alternative crop for us. And we have identified a crop like rice, which has also came in handy when we had a serious shortage of maize. And so as a government now, we are also promoting rice as a very strategic crop to us.
We'll come back to the issue of the maize importation. I just want to go back onto the numbers. You've projected that this year's bumper harvest is likely to be slightly above 40 million bags.
Yes.
Let's compare this to last year. What was the harvest last year in terms of bags?
The harvest last year was only 32 million bags.
32 million bags.
Bags of maize.
And in 2021?
And in 2021, actually, it was 36 million bags.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I think this figure of 40 million, Bonapia, seems to be like a moving target.
Yeah.
So today you say 40 million. Sometime it'll be, 42 million, 44 million.
2 million, yeah.
The president says 60 million bags. And we ask ourselves, is he not getting the figures from the Ministry of Agriculture? When the president, for example, on the 13th of August, he was attending a church service in Karen, he said This year, we are anticipating a bumper harvest of 66 million bags compared to last year
Yes.
when we reached 44 million bags.
There's nothing wrong with that. He was averaging.
66 is not an average of 40.
Plus or minus. That is normal.
Plus
That's
an
okay.
extra 26 million.
No, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Because it creates a whole different narrative, Bona PS.
It doesn't make any difference.
And it would make a difference if we look at our demand
Yes.
versus then the harvest. What's our annual demand for maize?
Our annual demand for maize is about 50 million bags.
Okay.
Yes.
So this basically would mean that the president is signaling we'll be exporting maize.
No, we will not be exporting
If he says that
maize.
we are going to grow 66, we are going to harvest 66 million bags against a target of 50 million, either we're going to be exporting maize or we are going to be like in the old days of Egypt. We are going actually to store some 16 million bags.
You know,
in our
maybe
storage.
there is something which you may not have understood.
Yes.
When we talk, I'm now an expert in,
Yes.
in agriculture.
Yes.
When you talk about 40 or 44 million bags this season,
Yeah.
I mean alone, you have not talked about the short rains which is coming. We are going to expect an El Nino from October, just this October. And from this, we are expecting another 10 million bags. What is, if you add 40 million to 10 million, so what will be the
50.
total?
50.
50.
Yes.
If you get 50 million from there, remember, we are in East Africa.
Yes.
Every day, we are getting maize from Uganda. Every day, we are getting maize from Tanzania.
Yeah.
It's a free market of East Africa.
Yes.
You have not asked me how many bags.
Our harvest, Bona PS. When we say our harvest,
That
we
means-
actually don't mean Uganda's harvest.
Okay.
Farmers tilling the land here
No,
and then.
I'm telling you that because you talked about imports.
Yes.
Yes. And you know that is not import.
For a long time, we appeared not to know how many farmers we have in this country. Do we have an idea how many farmers we actually have in the country and what acreage is under crop production and what crops are being grown?
Thank you very much. You are very correct. For many years, we had no data, proper data, not only data, but reliable data for farmers in this country. Until early this year, when the president directed that we should have data for farmers so that we are able to do many things for the farmers. And even then, we were not able to embark on a Tara farmer registration, but because we needed to distribute subsidized fertilizer quickly, we asked the provincial administration, particularly the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, and the village elders, to do a quick census of farmers for us, a quick registration of farmers to enable us distribute the fertilizers. However, that again was not so adequate. Although we were able to get a rough number of farmers, like 4.2 million farmers who are registered at the time. And as I said, that really enabled us to distribute the fertilizers. However, at the moment, we have realized that we need a more thorough, data representation for farmers in the country for us to be able to adequately plan in the country. And that is why now we have embarked on a more serious exercise starting this Friday to register all the farmers in the country with an expanded database. Farmers will be required to give all information pertaining to their farming status. As I said, beginning this Friday.
From 1st of September.
Yes.
So what does it entail, this registration, this bigger registration of farmers?
Now, this bigger registration of farmers will entail a lot of, is a larger questionnaire than we had when we were using the chiefs to register. Still, of course, we'll use the chiefs. But this time round, we'll, in the previous exercise, we just needed some elementary kind of information. Just the ones which appeared on your national identity card. For example, your name, your location,
Date of birth.
your date of birth. That was all. But this time round, we are going to do a bigger, a thorough, and a more modern kind of registration. For example, you as a farmer, you'll be required to give us information of acreage of your land. You will be asked to give us the kind of farming activities you are undertaking. If you are doing chicken, if you are doing livestock, if you are doing, crop cultivation. And if you are doing crop cultivation, which crops are you doing? Because we want to understand the specific crops, value chains across the country, which people are doing. For example, we want to understand how many wheat farmers do we have in Kenya? We also want to understand how many potato farmers do we have in Kenya?
It sounds like a farmer census. Yes.
Yes, actually, this is like a farmer census. It's a big exercise. It's a big exercise.
I imagine it would be. And even as we look at that, then, do you find, because I get the feeling, and you can stop me if I'm wrong here, but the approach that government is taking towards this is to have an all-encompassing system whereby you provide cheap farm inputs to farmers, you're able to track where they are and what they're doing, and at the end of the day, they are providing the much-needed resource of storage of available and extra food in the country. Do you feel that there would be need to have a training of farmers via extension officers that are available, for example, to let farmers know that this is the plan, and to have an all-encompassing plan means that you include them at the beginning, in the middle, and then towards the end, retraining farmers who may not have an idea of what to do, how to do this. Would that be part of this plan as well?
Yes, thank you very much. It's like you are part of the planners for agriculture, the way you speak.
There's leakage.
Or you have some leakage. Thank you very much. Part of this exercise, what we are doing is geomapping of the position of the farmers. It is the GPS is used to map the position of all farms in the country. This kind of geopositioning is going to help us understand locations of specific farms of a farmer. For example, if you wanted to visit an orange farmer in Makueni, his farm has already been mapped in this exercise, for example, will be able to inform us the specific position when we want to visit and even conduct extension services, as you have said. We will be able to do it because we understand where this farm is. We will also be able to support those farmers in terms of giving subsidized fertilizer, subsidized pesticides, subsidized seeds, and all kind of government support. We'll be able, because we understand where they are.
Yeah. Another factor that obviously that affects the crop, it affects harvests, is the health of the soil in Kenya. We already know that a minimal percentage of the soil or rather land for farming in Kenya is what is available. The restructuring of soil is something that a lot of countries then do carry out when it comes to then making sure that the soil will give you the crop that you're looking for. The acidity levels we've seen have risen in Kenya over the years. There never has been a time where land has laid fallow in order for it to regenerate, because there's a need to keep on planting. Is this also part of the plan to make sure that the soil essentially that we are depending on for this robust program is going to be able to keep delivering?
Yes, thank you very much. And that is what we are doing. The president has directed us to address the problem of soil acidity in the country. And we have taken necessary measures. One of the measures we have taken is to change the type of fertilizer we have been using. Initially, we have been using the fertilizer type called DAP, which is actually very acidic. And this time around, through the subsidized program, we have blended DAP with other forms of fertilizer to bring up a solution called NPK as a planting fertilizer, which we are using as a substitute of DAP, which have been an acid problem in the country, as you rightly say. So this has been addressed, and even the kind of harvest, bumper harvest you have just talked about, is because we have solved the problem of acidity in the country through bringing on blended fertilizer in Kenya to support the farmers.
So are we saying that because of this fertilizer now we don't need to think about alkalinization of our soils?
No. We have solved that problem. We will continue to solve that problem. In the long run, we are also going to provide farmers with lime, with a chemical called lime, which also is a solution to the problem of
acidity in the soil.
Acidity in the soil.
Let's dwell a little bit on this farmer census exercise. It says from the 1st of September, this Friday, the government will start now doing a registration of all farmers countrywide. How long is this exercise?
This exercise is going to slightly take over 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to say that we had earlier registered farmers.
Yes.
As I said, through the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, and the village elders during the start of this year.
Yeah.
And why we are repeating this exercise, number one, is because, as I said, we want to be more thorough. We want to make it all inclusive. And this program actually, the whole program will be called KIAMIS, Kenya Integrated Agriculture Management Information System.
This sounds close to the education one.
KIAMIS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Integrated Electro Management System again.
Exactly.
KIAMS. So this one is Kenya
Integrated Agriculture Management Information System.
KIAMIS.
KIAMIS.
Okay.
KIAMIS, actually the key word here is integration. Integrating the entire agriculture data in Kenya to become one, so that the government will use it for proper planning for the welfare of the farmers in the country.
21 days, you said. A maximum of 3 weeks, 21 days.
Yes.
Who are the enumerators? How do I identify them?
The enumerators, we have already identified them. They are going to be graduates of various agriculture colleges in the country. We are going to recruit 10 enumerators from every ward in the country. You know, a ward is an area which has elected an MCA.
Yes.
So from every ward, we are going to have 10 enumerators. All of them graduates of agriculture, either with certificate, with a degree, or
as
diploma.
long as somebody has been to an agriculture college,
yes,
or university,
in
a ward,
yes, in a ward,
you will pick them.
We will pick
so
them. 10 of them,
10 enumerators per ward.
Yes.
Will they be wearing reflector jackets? You know, we want to make sure that we are not getting con men and women coming to our homes.
Yes.
So what's that whole process? How do we identify them? What time of day or night will they be coming?
Yeah.
What kind of information will
they
they
be
asking? Do I need to give them any documentation to prove ownership of my land?
Thank you very much. First of all, we know that there have been a lot of Cornish activities in villages and in towns, you know, people impersonating others. To avoid that, we have engaged the provincial administration again to support this exercise. The regional commissioners are part of the exercise. The county commissioners are, as you know, supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
The enumerators will be going around villages from morning to evening visiting homes, visiting farms, accompanied by chiefs or assistant chiefs or village elders. There will be no enumerator who will go without the supervision of chiefs and
village elders.
Mm-hmm. And you know, these are recognized leaders in these communities.
Yes.
And actually, those are as good as badges. I've been in that system for many years myself. Been a county commissioner myself, a district commissioner. So I understand how people, accept chiefs as badges, as rubber stamps of government.
Yes.
So when these enumerators are going around, they will be accompanied by these people.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of questions they are asking, of course, will be about the data which we want to integrate, as I indicated earlier, about the acreage of land, about, what kind of crops he or she, the farmer is growing. Is it rice? Is it maize? Is it potatoes? All those questions will be asked. And also whether the farmer has training. There are also other questions which we are asking this time around for planning purposes. For example, we want to understand in this area, for the farmer, what is the nearest agrovet to your home?
Okay.
Because in the long run, we may use this agrovet to supply subsidized fertilizer, subsidized seeds, subsidized pesticides, all this. What is the nearest National Cereals Board store to you? Where? All these questions will be asked.
When they come to the home, so the enumerator has come accompanied by the headman or the chief, are they going to ask who the head of this homestead is? You know what I'm asking. You do not want to hear that now people are starting fighting because mtu alikuja akaanza kuuliza bibi yangu maswali ya shamba yangu. Ama kaja kuuliza mtoto wangu maswali ya shamba yangu.
Yes.
How do we identify who the actual farmer here in this homestead is?
That is why we are using the chiefs and the village elder. Because the enumerator, of course, does not understand who the owner of the land is. The chief or the village elder understands who the farmer is. Number two, remember, we have trained these enumerators on all these questions you are asking. We have trained them, we have prepared them to approach people in a very polite way, to understand the cultures of community. And remember, the 10 enumerators come from that area.
Okay.
The specific word. They understand some of these farmers. Who are they? Who owns this? Who died last year? Who inherited this land? Because they are locals. You cannot. We have not transferred somebody from Nairobi to Kakamega to do enumeration.
Yeah.
It's somebody from a village in Ikolomani, for example.
Okay.
Or Madira in Nyeri. The specific location you come from is where you go and do enumeration.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long do you expect this process to take place of, the collating of this information? And then what happens after that?
What happens is that, as I said, we may collect this data for about 3 weeks and see whether we have thoroughly concluded it. We have thoroughly exhausted all the farmers we wanted to collect data from. If we are not convinced that 3 weeks are not enough, we are, as a government, we can add another 1 week. We have a capacity to analyze and understand and say we have not received enough of what we wanted. So we can add even 2 weeks if you wanted, if we feel that we have not had enough. Secondly, after we receive the data, we are going to analyze this data and you see, sieve. Some people may not have told us the truth. Like in the previous exercise, somebody maybe thinking that if you say you have a lot of acres, you will get something more.
Get more fertilizer.
Somebody with 1 acre was telling that he has 60 acres. Giving false information. And what happened? many of these people who gave false information did not get the subsidized fertilizers. They missed out. What happened? We sieved this information. We came to analyze this information later and found out that some of them were not, some of them are false, some of them were lies. And so this data will be subjected to that kind of examination, validation. And after that, we'll make it a national data, which we are going to use it for planning for various support activities, which is done by the government.
When do we expect the final data to come out?
The final data should be ready in 2 months' time.
So in about 2 months, September, October, November,
Yes.
we should be knowing.
By the end of October, we should be knowing.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there
we should
a
be
plan on how regularly you want to be conducting this exercise? Because today you may come and find I've got an acre and I am putting it under whatever kind of agricultural activity.
Yeah.
After 2 years, I've converted that whole thing into real estate.
Yes, I agree.
So how regularly do you want to be doing this?
Definitely, we are alive to those changing dynamics. You know, people migrate, people die, ownership changes. Some people even become rich. They buy more land.
Yeah.
You know, those things happen. And we are going to review, that is kind of subjecting our data to review from time to time. We are going to discuss what are the interviews of these reviews at a later time.
Okay.
Yes.
There's been an issue, PS, and as somebody who's also headed the Food and Agriculture Authority in the country organization, very well, our food security matters have been played with for a long time. We don't have strategic food reserves. We're just growing crop, consuming, and not keeping anything for the future. What's the plan to make sure that this time we actually do have strategic grain reserves or food reserves, that we don't have to keep opening up importation windows which end up failing like the way this one has failed?
That's a very good question. First of all, we need to be food secure as a country. There's nothing as good as being food secure in any country in the world. When you are food secure, even at your home, you always feel proud, you feel independent of, many things which you don't desire. You are always happy. You can plan your things like that. So as a country, it is important that we are food secure. We as a country in Kenya have a capacity to produce all kinds of foods we have been importing. For example, we are importing, our annual demand of rice is 1 million metric tons. We are only able to produce 300,000 metric tons. We are importing 700,000 metric tons of rice every year, whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
Because we can't produce it. Our annual consumption of wheat is 3 million bags. Okay? Our annual production is slightly over 1 million bags. We have a deficit of 2 million bags of which we must export.
Yeah.
Import.
These are imports,
Which we must import, sorry. We have a deficit of sugar amounting to about 250,000 metric tons every year. Okay? So that means we have, for us to be food secure, we must seal those deficits. And I wanted to say that as a country, we have capacity to seal this deficit. Like edible oil. We are importing 130 billion worth of edible oil every year. Out of 1 million metric tons of edible oil we consume, in Kenya we only produce 5% of it. So all this I'm talking about means we have to seal these gaps to produce food. And for us to seal these gaps, we must start thinking of making ourselves adequate in terms of rice. How do we make ourselves adequate? We must introduce what we call irrigation-fed agriculture in this country, because all these problems are coming because of climate change. We have a lot of drought. We are unable to, while our people are very hardworking, very aggressive, they may not do this because the rains are not enough.
Yeah.
You can imagine the amount of rains we received recently and the amount of effort our people have put very quickly, and producing this kind of food. So what we should do is to provide some irrigation infrastructure in this country to ensure that we produce all this food. We seal the deficits I've just spoken about. The issue of strategic food reserve, yes, we have put in place measures. We are going to buy some amount of maize very soon from farmers so that we are able to replenish our strategic food reserve. Yes.
Okay. We'll invite you to talk more about that, and also to look at what is it that the Agriculture and Food Authority was established to do, and whether it's doing that in terms of ensuring that we get to that level of food security, and why not? Now that you've been head of it, and now you're the principal secretary, so the head of it, what are you doing to support them? Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to more information. As the PS says, from this Friday, the Ministry of Agriculture is starting a nationwide farmer registration exercise. They'll be coming to you. They'll be sharing more information, of course, in all our other media platforms. PS Kello Harsama is the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Crop Development, Ministry of Agriculture.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.